All right, hello and welcome back to another episode of Just a Girl from Cleveland. This is episode 174. Lots to catch up on in this episode. I hope everyone has been doing well. You know, weather here in Cleveland the last couple weeks has not been giving summertime. It's almost June and we've really been struggling to get any warm weather. So hoping we get some real good baseball summer weather coming up because it's been a little bit brutal here, not gonna lie. But yeah, like I said, hope everyone is enjoying the start of their summer and hopefully recovering from the terrible Cavs loss to the Pacers. Obviously, since it's been a bit since I've recorded, I have not gotten to kind of discuss the aftermath of that series, so definitely want to get into that today. I want to touch on the Browns schedule and any of the Browns kind of camp conversations that have been happening over the last few weeks here with, you know, rookie mini camp and obviously more specifically just the quarterbacks and what is going on with them right now. So kind of just going to get into all of that today. Let's start off with the Cavs because obviously that's kind of been the biggest topic that has been, it's been pretty upsetting to deal with over the last month or so, the series and then just the aftermath of it and all the conversations that happen, because it's not the type of conversations you want to be having about a team that you really love and enjoy watching. Like, I'm sure a lot of you feel this way, but I genuinely love these players, and especially the core four who we've gotten to watch grow together over the last couple of seasons and go through some battles together. It sucks to be having conversations and that you have to watch other people have conversations about like which of those players should be traded and how can you blow this team up to make you guys an actual contender. And when you really love the players, it is kind of sad to be seeing all of that happen. So, did not expect to be in this position, quite honestly. I really felt like this team was going to at least be competing in the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm sure everyone pretty much felt like that across the board. Did not think that we would be a second round exit once again, especially considering the Cavs were the 1 seed this year, but that is kind of the cards we are dealt. And while I don't think that we need to settle for these second round exits and just be comfortable with what we're doing, I don't think blowing the whole team up is necessarily the correct answer. And look, it's just not going to make sense anyways. The Cavs are in a position financially and with contracts that's just not really possible. And look, if you're going to make big moves, you want them to be moves that really make sense. You don't want to just make moves for the sake of making moves. And I think anything that they would have to give up in a trade, it would be hard to get enough of a return that would make those trades worth it. So I think if you're sitting there really thinking realistically about this team and what they can do in the future, blowing it all up and trading away really key pieces is just not a realistic solution, and it's probably not going to have the impact that you want it to have. And look, when we look back at the series with the Pacers, I know some people are going to think like, here I am with my optimism making excuses for the team, but this is just how I realistically, I think, after some time has settled, have looked at that series. And I don't think there's an excuse for losing. You should have won that series. You were the 1 seed, and I think you had the more talented team overall. But this is just to kind of talk through, what went wrong. Obviously, the injuries is a factor that you can't ignore. And I do think some people want to ignore that because it's easy to say like, oh, just fight through it, whatever. But when you're looking at Darius in those last couple of games, like hobbling around on the court, he truly was like playing on 1 foot. It felt like at certain points he could barely move in a normal way. I went to the last game that we lost in Cleveland and I was like, oh my God, he looks so hurt. So, and obviously we had players missing games. That makes things really tough. And you can't deny that. And as much as I want to say, like, you gotta next man up, you gotta step up. Like when it's these key important players on your team, it's really hard to feel like, okay, yeah, next man step up, but we've built this unit and these different groups that work well together on the court, and then we just get rid of that in the playoffs when it matters most. Like I think it's hard to say that. So yes, injuries definitely played a factor. I think additionally, the Pacers were shooting out of their minds and the Cavs were not. They were on a crazy run during that series, and honestly, they're on a similarly crazy run against the Knicks in this series in the Eastern Conference Finals now. It was pretty wild to watch Knicks fans reacting after I'm pretty sure that was game 1. When Haliburton hit that final shot, they had come back from being down. I felt like I was having deja vu watching Knicks fans go through exactly what Cavs fans had gone through. Like the Pacers are just having one of those magical postseasons where they're just finding ways to win. And you know, I know that's like not a basketball answer by any sense, but sometimes like a team is just on a run that is really special for them. I do think the physicality played a part in all of it. I think the Pacers did beat on the Cavs in some sense and were playing more physical basketball than them. I don't think that was like the sole reason they beat them, because I think it came down to they were shooting better and we were shooting poorly most of the time. And sometimes it just comes down to that. Donovan couldn't make threes to save his life in the series. Even when he was taking over games, it felt like he was driving to the basket in order to get those shots off. It was not him taking threes. And look, that was detrimental to him, I think, in a lot of ways, because he was getting hacked going to the hoop every time. And that was certainly weighing on him throughout the series, having to take a physical beating constantly because he had to drive to the hoop in order to get the scores that he needed because his shots just weren't falling. Ty Jerome, obviously not the Ty Jerome that we all watched and believed in all season. That was one of the more disappointing parts, I think, of that series in general. Obviously, he did a little bit better in that last game and was shooting better, but in general, it was just, we relied on him a lot throughout the season, especially to step up when other guys were struggling, and to not have that, it makes a huge difference in what you can do offensively. I already mentioned Darius, in part because of his injury, was struggling with shooting. Max was very up and down. Obviously, he had the comments before the last game of like, if you're not ready to play, don't show up. And then he was like 0 for 9 or something crazy like that. So Max, a little bit up and down. He had some good moments, which I think showed in the fact that he was an experienced playoff player, but still had some really off games, which was definitely a bummer. I also think, you know, the Cavs were allowing the Pacers to kind of play the pace of game that they wanted a lot of times, and we're allowing them to take control in that way, where I think, you know, the Cavs, they had maybe 1 or 2 games where I felt like they were playing their style of game and their pace of game, but I felt like for most of the series, the Pacers really controlled that. You know, what I think it really comes down to for the Cavs is, and I think everyone has said this for the last few years, that the offense runs best and we have an edge that other teams don't have when it runs through the bigs. I think people have also said for years that the Cavs will be at their best and they will be the most likely to contend for a championship when Evan Mobley is their best player. And I think for me, that became even more clear in the series. You know, I feel like they would have moments and a few minutes in a game where it was like they were having the offense run through Jared and Evan, specifically Evan, and the bigs were getting involved offensively in a big way, specifically Evan, and then they would just go away from it. And it was working when they were doing it, because that is an advantage that the Cavs had over the Pacers, and they would just go away from it. And look, when the offense, I think, is running more through Evan, I think it opens things up for everyone else. It opens up the offense for all of the shooters around the perimeter to do a better job. Whereas I felt like it was just like dribble down the court. You know, same guy keeps the ball, takes a really bad shot, turned over to the other team, move along. Like that just felt like how they were running their offense for a while. There was no, I mean, throughout the season, there was some great passes that the team would make. The ball movement was really special to watch at times, and it felt like they lost all of that. And I think the key to all of that is Evan Mobley. And when they get away from that, that's when things start to go south. So I'm curious to see next year if that is going to be more of a focus during the regular season, because this regular season, we were so talented and such a good team that you didn't really have to like do anything in particular. You didn't have to run your offense through Evan throughout the regular season. You were just going to roll through teams for the most part. And you were just like comfortable with like, okay, whatever way we win tonight is kind of fine. But I think next season they might have to be more intentional about how they're treating the regular season, so that when it comes time for the playoffs, they truly know what their identity is as a team and what they need to do to win, and are more comfortable doing that, so that they don't run into this issue of like, what is our playoff identity, especially when guys aren't making shots. So yeah, it's certainly a bummer. I was really sad when it was all over because, like I said, such a fun year. It's hard to dislike this team and feel like angry towards them because they're so likable and it was so much fun. But I would be lying if I said it didn't hurt to watch, you know, the Knicks and Pacers moving along here and playing, and it not being the Cavs. I mean, especially all things considered, with Boston not making it out of the second round either, and the Jason Tatum injury. It's like we wouldn't have even had to go through Boston, and so that really sucks too. I truly think if the Cavs were playing the Knicks right now, that they would also be beating them in that series, and that's a real tough pill to swallow as well. At this point, I'm honestly just hoping OKC wins it all. I don't dislike them as a team, and I really don't want the Pacers to win it all, because after that series, naturally you grow a dislike for the other team and the way they conducted themselves and the fans conducted themselves. So that just happens when you play a team in the playoffs. So I'm all in on the West right now, on whoever's coming out of there and hopefully gonna win it all. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so quickly on the Browns' schedule. Obviously, this came out a couple weeks ago, but has been a while since I recorded, so I haven't gotten to talk about it. Couple, I guess, just important call-outs that I personally noticed in the schedule. First of all, we have a pretty hard schedule. We have some tough opponents this year, which is interesting considering we were one of the worst teams in the league last year. You usually end up with an easier schedule, but that is not the case. I think we're also in like a division with some good teams, so it always just naturally you're gonna have some tougher teams that you play twice a year on your schedule. The first 2 weeks are Bengals and Ravens, and I think that's going to be really telling for the year when you open up with 2 division games on what you're going to be able to do throughout the season. Those will be really important. It's interesting that we've played the Bengals early in a week 1 many times before. And the Bengals are known, especially in this Joe Burrow era, for getting a slow start to the season and then having to pick up slack later in the year. So I think that's probably an opportune time to be playing them, but who knows? It's hard to predict what this Browns team is going to look like. So yeah, I think the first 2 weeks are going to be really telling for like, is this team even going to have a shot this year, or what's the situation? The front and the end of the schedule in general is challenging. You also have Ravens, you have the Detroit Lions, you have Green Bay. Early on, you're going to be overseas in London playing the Vikings. And I think anytime you're overseas, that just throws everything off, especially considering the Vikings will already be overseas in Dublin the week before. So they might be more accustomed to the time change and all of that stuff and be a little bit more comfortable. So I think the start of the season is definitely tough for their schedule. So that's just going to be really telling for a lot of things. The last thing that I think is very key about this schedule is that there are no primetime games. They have 2 4:00 games, and then they have the London game, which is 9:30 a.m. Eastern game, but no primetime games. No Thursday, no Sunday night, no Monday. I personally love that. I enjoy watching 1 p.m. games best. I think it's just, I don't know. It takes the pressure off in a lot of ways too. I think it'll be better for the team to just be like, we were in this weird primetime spotlight in the last few years. I think because of the Deshaun trade and, the potential that the Browns could have had. And they had obviously the run there in the playoff. Well, not a run in the playoffs, but they had a playoff game with Joe Flacco, best defense in the league. Naturally, Browns get some primetime games because of that. Don't think it does us any good. This takes us back to our roots, back in the 0-16, 1-15 seasons. We used to only have 1 p.m. games, and I just personally like watching our 1 p.m. games the best. So I don't have a problem with it, and hopefully it takes the pressure off the players too without having that big spotlight. And it was rough sometimes because we'd have some bad matchups in primetime where we're playing another bad team and we were underperforming as a team as well. And the whole world is just mad that they have to watch this terrible matchup on a Thursday or a Monday, and no one likes that. So I personally feel good about the 1 o'clock games only. And then you never really have to play on shortened weeks, it's all kind of the same schedule. They have a normal bye week. Everything is pretty cookie cutter. So I feel good about that. A lot of good away locations for people to travel to as well. I know I'm hopefully going to plan some to be at, as I do most years. So definitely looking forward to that. We still got a lot of months left though till the season. So the schedule release always gets you a little pumped, and then you're like, okay, now what? Give us football. Which brings me to the conversations about rookie mini camp and just the camp videos from the last few weeks in general. I think mostly, obviously, what I want to talk about here is quarterback. I think it's easy to really get invested into these conversations during camp. And I know it's going to happen all summer about who's doing well on which day and who's throwing to who on which day. I think right now is a little bit too early to read into too much of it, although it's hard for me not to, because I do think that they're going to start the season with a vet QB. I don't think that Dylan or Shador are going to be starting week 1. I just don't think that makes sense, especially considering where both of them were drafted. And the fact that you brought in both Joe and Kenny Pickett makes me really feel like one of them is going to get the start for week 1. Leading up until the last few weeks, I was pretty sure it was probably going to be Joe. It just made sense to me. But I think the more I am reading from different insiders over the last few weeks, and the more I'm reading into camp stuff I just told you guys not to do, it kind of makes me feel like it might end up being Kenny. And look, a lot can happen over the next couple months. I just kind of wonder if Kevin really loves Kenny. And I don't love that, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. So I'll be interested to see as we get deeper into the summer if Kenny is really taking a lot of the first team snaps and what is happening there, because I don't know, something is telling me that is where they're leaning right now, which is crazy place to be, because I was kind of he's going to be the one who's getting the boot and not going to be on the roster, and now I'm he might be the one starting week 1. I don't know. But yeah, overall, I feel a lot of people are comparing oh, they're, each quarterback had this many completions today and this many touchdowns, and I know I do a sports podcast. I am not at the point where I'm ready to be debating those type of things, because I genuinely don't think that it means anything for what's going to happen. So we will just have to wait and see as time goes on. Also, a lot of people getting angry again that Myles Garrett's not at OTAs. Myles Garrett hasn't gone to OTAs before. I don't think that means anything for where he stands with the team. He's already signed his extension. He's coming back. I think it's all okay. Myles Garrett doesn't need to be at OTAs. I don't mind when the vets aren't at OTAs. Enjoy your summer. I don't want you messing around getting hurt anyways. It's fine. It doesn't need to be that deep. And I feel people make it that deep all the time. And I just don't believe it is. So we will see. Last quick NFL topic I did want to discuss that's not Browns related is about the Tush Push, because I have felt very passionate about this topic for quite some time. It was put up by the Green Bay Packers to ban the Tush Push from being allowed for offenses in the NFL. It did not pass. It had to get like a certain number of votes, and I think there were like 10-ish teams maybe that voted against it. I can't remember what the exact number was, but the Browns were one of the teams that voted to keep it. So I shout out to the Browns for getting one right. Appreciate that. I personally just think it would be silly to ban it, especially right now. Like, I would get if this was happening if it didn't feel so targeted towards the Philadelphia Eagles, who just won the Super Bowl and are the team that does the Tush Push more and better than literally every other team. That feels so intentional in a way that I just can't get behind, and it makes everyone look kind of soft. If it was like this widespread thing where a lot of teams were doing it kind of at the same level, maybe I could understand it a little bit more. But when it feels so specific towards one specific team, and that one specific team happened to just win a Super Bowl, feels a little bit crazy to me. Look, they found a way to be better at something than everyone else, and there's lots of advantages that different teams have, and the Eagles have found theirs. So I think it would not make sense to me for them to be kind of like targeted in that way, and ban it. I know a lot of people were like, oh, it's because of injury reasons. There's been no proof to this point in time, and I think that's made example by the Eagles specifically, who do it all the time, that you get injured more on the Tush Push. That hasn't been the case yet. Now, if the evidence started to come out that was the case, that might change things, but that's just not the reality today. So, yeah, I just couldn't get behind it, and I'm glad to see it back. Years down the road, if like it's kind of this widespread thing where a lot of teams are doing it and a lot of guys are getting injured, my opinion could be changed. But for now, I'm like, that is so weak for everyone else to be like, they won the Super Bowl and they were really good at this thing, so we're not going to let them do it anymore. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. So yeah, shout out to the Browns for being on the right side of history. First time you can say that in a while, it feels like, but yeah, I'm glad for that one, for the league in general. All right, well, that is all I have for you guys today. Gonna continue to watch the rest of, the NFL playoffs, or not NFL, NBA playoffs as they happen here, and might have more to say about that next episode. And we'll continue to follow everything, all the goings on with the Browns of the coming weeks. We're getting into, close to that slow period of year where it's really just baseball. As soon as NBA is over, or you don't have much else. So that's like a tough time of year as a sports fan, but we'll try to enjoy the calm of it all, and hopefully everyone can enjoy their summers before we ramp up into football season again, which is, the best time of year. So thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate you always. If you could subscribe on the YouTube, leave a comment on the YouTube, follow, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, all of that good stuff. Leave a review or rating. I'd very much appreciate. Thank you guys, as always, for listening. Go Browns, go Cavs, go Guards.